Hello, my name is Bota Sharipova. I am a fellow of the Grand Central Asia Initiative, and this is my pleasure to join this panel today on water and climate security in Central Asia. And my topic is building trust in transboundary water cooperation through epistemic communities on the case of Central Asian states. And during this 10 minutes presentation, I'm going to speak about weak transboundary cooperation as a security threat, then about what does actually trust mean in transboundary water cooperation, and then about Central Asian case about epistemic community and trust. And this is the map which we all know very well. And this map demonstrates the imbalance between 5 countries of Central Asia in terms of flow generation and water abstraction. We can see that the upstream countries of the region, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, generate a lot of water, but at the same time, they use just small share of it. While downstream countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, they don't contribute that much in terms of flow generation, but at the same time, their water abstraction rate is quite high. And this gives rise to the conflicts between upstream and downstream countries in terms of the usage of water, because upstream countries want to develop their hydropower potential, while downstream countries want to sustain their agriculture. And that's why this disbalance in water distribution can be potentially source of conflict in Central Asia. And also, since climate change, also as water resources do not recognize borders, that means that transboundary cooperation becomes essential and becomes a need for Central Asian countries. At the same time, weak cooperation between these countries may potentially lead to conflictual situation and thus, therefore, to threat to regional security. And when we start thinking about transboundary cooperation in Central Asia, and then we start reading different scientific articles, we can see that a lot of scientific literature highlight or stress on the lack of trust or mistrust, or even sometimes there is a formulation like spiraling mistrust or increased lack of trust, breakdown of trust, eroded trust as the reasons of weak cooperation in the region. And therefore, it is interesting to look into what does trust actually means and how it can be built between newly independent countries of Central Asia. And then if we look into the most prominent theories of international relations, like neorealism, liberalism, neoliberal institutionalism, and constructivism, we can see that they differently perceive trust. They attach different attributes to it, and origins of trust and to origins of mistrust. And what can be concluded from this table is that neorealism mostly says that trust between countries is not possible. The most positive scenario is that there can be decreased level of mistrust between countries because of common interest and creating alliances, while constructivism says that trust between countries is possible, and it is based on the because what constructivists say is that there is a way that social factors can play a role in interstate relations between countries, and therefore the adherence of constructivism theory says that based on sharing understanding of what is right, it is actually possible to create trust between countries. It can be built by different means, by shared identity, common virtue and values, by reciprocating cooperation, and other ways. And one of the means which was interesting for me, and I decided to make research on it, is in epistemic communities. And here I'm giving my definition of trust, which was built after Hoffman, 2002. And I consider trust as a belief that other states would do what is right, with the right being socially constructed and common for both truster and trustee. And then, as I said before, I am building my research on the activities of epistemic communities and their contribution to trust. And epistemic communities is a network of professionals with recognized expertise and competence in a particular domain, and an authoritative claim to policy relevant knowledge within that domain of issue area. That's according to Kibaroglu. And then I'm framing it because I'm using the case study of Central Asian countries as a newly independent states. And here is how epistemic communities can contribute to trust. For example, if we on this scheme, we can say that there is a country A, country B, and other countries, and each country has its own national scientific community. And if these scientific communities work together, they can create common knowledge, and this common knowledge would inform decision makers of each country so that they would all together understand what is right in the particular situation. And this scheme of the work of epistemic communities work in any transboundary issues, but especially in managing natural resources. And that's why I'm applying this concept to transboundary water cooperation, stating that epistemic communities can contribute to building trust by creating common understanding of what is right between different states. And then when applying this concept to Central Asian context, we would expect that there is an epistemic community which was formed during Soviet times, because experts of Soviet times, they had shared paradigms and practices, because they studied together or even if they studied in different universities, they used the same educational programs. Then they were overseen by the same decision-making organ, and that would mean that they had similar, at least, practices or even the same. And then there was continuity of generations, which means that there was a new generation of water experts, and they were coached, or they were trained to do the same thing as the previous generation. And that's why it is essential to expect that epistemic communities would contribute to building trust in Central Asian countries. And then we can see that after independence, after obtaining independence, countries of Central Asia created International Fund for Saving Daral Sea. And there were two bodies of this fund. You can see on this picture organizational structure of this fund. And here you can see two bodies which were created as an epistemic communities, because the main aim is to ensure that scientific communities of different countries work together and inform decision makers of this regional body. This is a Scientific Information Center of International Commission for Water Coordination and Scientific Information Center of Interstate Commission for Sustainable Development. They are both in red circle. But what we see here, this is a scheme which demonstrates what happened with the epistemic community in Central Asia, that there were different countries, and that epistemic communities could not serve in building common knowledge because of the politicization or securitization of water issues, and because of the prevailing national interest, which prevented creating common knowledge by epistemic communities. And this way, epistemic communities could not serve in building trust. And so the reasons why there is no trust with the help of epistemic communities is that epistemic community in Central Asia is not fully functional. And there is a country's perception that organizations responsible for scientific cooperation promote national interess, that there is a perception about biased knowledge. Each country tries to use scientific knowledge and information to justify its national interests, and there is a competition for side payments. Also, there is a change of paradigms between generations. There is no continuity of generation in this epistemic community anymore. These were the results of my research, and yeah, there is a justification for each of these points. I mean, arguments for each of these points. Thanks a lot.